Hey, welcome to the very first episode of O'Connor's Quick Strike. I'm John O'Connor, and you're about to experience something completely different in conservative media. If you're coming over from my other show, O'Connor's Right Stand, thanks for making the jump, and get ready for a whole new format. For those who don't know, Right Stand is where I do deep dives twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, really digging into single issues for 20-25 minutes. That's the scalpel approach. Quick Strike, this is the sledgehammer. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We're hitting you with the three biggest stories since the last episode. The stuff the mainstream media either ignores or gets completely wrong. Think of it like we're sitting at a ball game, beers in hand, and you ask me, what the hell happened in the news? You're going to get my raw, unfiltered, no BS take on exactly what you need to know. No fancy graphics, no teleprompters, no corporate sponsors telling me what I can and can't say. Just me breaking down the stories that matter to real Americans who are tired of being lied to. This is episode 1, so I'm still fine-tuning the formula. But I want your feedback. Tell me what is working, what isn't. You can find me at o'connorsquickstrike.com, which is getting a complete rebuild, or o'connorsrightstand.com, or hit me up on X at O'Connor Podcasts. It's Monday, September 21st, and I got 3 things that happened since Thursday that are going to make you realize we are finally fighting back. Let's jump into it.
3.
So, Friday, Kennedy's new vaccine panel met, and the medical establishment is having a complete meltdown. Here's what happened. Kennedy fired the entire CDC vaccine committee back in June. All of them. 17 people who've been rubber stamping whatever Big Pharma wanted for years. And he replaced them with actual scientists who ask questions, who look at the data instead of just following orders. Friday was their first big meeting, and they were supposed to discuss COVID boosters, hepatitis B shots for newborns, and stuff like that. But instead of just saying yes to everything like the old committee used to do, these people actually debated. They asked for evidence. They wanted to see the studies. And the medical establishment went absolutely hyperbolic. The Washington Post is calling them ill-prepared and saying they're botching science. NPR says it was chaotic and contentious. Really? Asking for evidence is chaotic now? For years, the old committee would meet, somebody would present a vaccine, and they'd all nod and approve it. No questions, no debate, just rubber stamp, rubber stamp, rubber stamp. But now they're actually looking at the data, and suddenly that's a problem. One of the new members is a guy named Levy from MIT. He's been saying that mRNA vaccines might be causing serious harm, especially in young people. And when senators asked Kennedy about it, he said, I agree with it. Can you imagine a health secretary who actually agrees with scientists instead of just repeating whatever Pfizer tells him to say? The old CDC director, Susan Monterez, testified last week that Kennedy was trying to politicize the process. But wait, politicize it? Lady, it's been politicized for decades. It's been politicized in favor of the pharmaceutical companies who make billions off these shots. Kennedy's just politicizing it in favor of, science. And here's the thing that really gets them scared. The new committee didn't automatically approve prescription requirements for COVID vaccines. They actually voted it down. Because requiring prescriptions makes it harder for people to get vaccines. And if vaccines are so safe and effective, why would you want to make them harder to get? Unless, maybe they're not as safe and effective as they've been telling us. The whole medical establishment is freaking out because for the first time in decades, somebody's actually asking questions. Somebody's actually looking at the data instead of just trusting the experts. And the experts hate that because when you actually look at the data, it doesn't always support what they've been saying.
2.
So Thursday, Trump had his first phone call with Xi Jinping since getting back in office. And unlike every other president who just talks and gets nothing, Trump actually came out of it with something. He says they've got a deal to spin TikTok off from Chinese ownership. If that's real, that's huge. Look, TikTok is basically Chinese spyware on every American teenager's phone. The Chinese Communist Party can see everything these kids are watching, what they're posting, where they are. And they use that data to manipulate what Americans kids can see, push certain political content, hide other stuff. It's psychological warfare disguised as dancing videos. Getting that out of Chinese hands would be a massive win for national security. But here's the thing. Every politician for years has been talking about doing something about TikTok. Hearings, investigations, tough talk. And nothing ever happens. Trump just picked up the phone, called Z, and apparently got a deal finally. Now, we don't know all the details yet, and we definitely can't trust China to follow through without serious verification. But at least somebody's actually trying to solve the problem instead of just holding more hearings about it. The call also covered trade and Ukraine, and this is classic Trump. He's willing to work with people he doesn't trust if he can get something America needs. He's not pretending Z is his friend. He knows China is our biggest competitor, but he also knows that sometimes you have to deal with your competitors to get things done. Previous presidents would either be too scared to call Z or they'd call him and come away with nothing, but we had a productive conversation. Trump calls him and comes away with actual deals. Whether this TikTok thing actually happens, we'll see. China's broken plenty of promises before. But at least we've got a president who's willing to pick up the phone and try to make something happen instead of just tweeting about how bad China is.
1.
Friday, Trump signed an executive order that's going to make Silicon Valley billionaires cry into their oat milk lattes. He's imposing a $100,000 fee on H-1B visas, per visa, per worker. You know what H-1B visas are. I mean, they're supposed to be for highly skilled foreign workers that companies can't find anywhere in America. But that's complete BS, and everyone knows it. H-1B visas are how tech companies import cheap labor to replace American workers. They bring in someone from India or China, pay them half of what they'd pay an American, and then claim they couldn't find qualified Americans. It's the biggest scam in the immigration system. And Trump just made it really expensive to keep running that scam. Microsoft, Amazon, Google, all these companies, they've been bringing in thousands of H-1B workers for years, paying them maybe 60% of what an American would make for the same job. But now it costs them $100,000 just to file the paperwork, before they even pay the worker's salary. So if Microsoft wants to bring in 1,000 H-1B workers, that's $100 million in fees, just for the privilege of hiring foreigners instead of Americans. You know what's hilarious? The tech companies are going insane. They're saying this will hurt innovation and damage America's competitiveness. Really? Hiring Americans will hurt innovation. These are the same companies that have been laying off American workers for years while claiming they can't find talent. The same companies that post job listings with impossible requirements just so they can say, "We tried to hire Americans but couldn't find anyone qualified." Now suddenly, they're worried about America's competitiveness. What they're really worried about is their profit margins, because American workers cost more than imported workers. But here's the thing Trump figured out. If these companies really need these highly skilled workers so badly, they shouldn't mind paying for them. $100,000 is nothing to a company like Google if they're really getting someone they can't find in America. But if they're just importing cheap labor to replace Americans, well, now that's not so cheap anymore. The best part is watching the tech bros try to explain why this is so bad. Elon Musk, who's been complaining about H-1B abuse for years, suddenly got real quiet when Trump actually did something about it. Because it turns out even Elon likes to hire cheap foreign workers. But Trump doesn't care. He campaigned on putting American workers first, and this does exactly that. If you want to hire a foreign worker, fine, but you're going to pay American workers' wages to do it. Companies are already freaking out. Goldman Sachs told all their H-1B workers not to travel internationally because they don't know how the new rules work. Good. Let them freak out. Let them figure out how to hire Americans for once. And if they can't, well, maybe they weren't as innovative as they thought they were. Okay, 3 stories, 3 examples of people fighting back. Kennedy's not just complaining about the vaccine establishment, he's dismantling it and building something better. Trump's not just whining about China or cheap foreign labor, he's making deals with the Z while slapping massive fees on companies that won't hire Americans. And in every case, the establishment is losing their minds, because for decades they've gotten away with putting profits over people, politics over science, and foreign workers over Americans. But that's changing. Every day, more people are waking up to how rigged the system really is. The medical establishment thought they could just rubber stamp whatever Big Pharma wanted forever. Now they actually have to prove their vaccines are safe and necessary. China thought they could keep spying on American kids through TikTok while plotting with our enemies. Now, they're having to negotiate like adults. Tech companies thought they could keep importing cheap labor while laying off Americans. Now they're going to be paying through the nose for that privilege. That's what the establishment doesn't understand. Americans don't like getting screwed over. And when you've been running scams for decades, vaccine scams, visa scams, trade scams, eventually people figure it out. And when they do figure it out, they vote for people like Trump who are willing to blow up your entire system. So yeah, these 3 stories should piss you off. A medical establishment that puts pharmaceutical profits over children's health. A Chinese government that wants to spy on your kids while conspiring with our enemies. Tech billionaires who'd rather hire cheap foreign workers than pay Americans a living wage. But they should also give you hope, because we're not just taking it anymore. We're fighting back. We're using the system. We're making them pay. And we're winning. That's what's happened since Thursday. 3 fights, 3 examples of conservatives who refuse to back down. If you have never heard my voice before, head on over to o'connorsrightstand.com and check out the complimentary podcast to this one. And look me up on X at O'Connor's Podcasts. This is O'Connor's Quick Strike, and I'm John O'Connor. See you on Wednesday, Patriots.